Hey guys, today we are doing an updated video on the 8 cognitive functions. This time I'm going to endeavour to make my explanations as succinct as possible. Just a note before we begin, a reminder that your particular cognitive functions indicate a preference in how you perceive and judge information. You are all capable of adopting behaviour that reflects the use of other cognitive functions, but anything that is chosen behaviour is not what a cognitive function is. Your dominant cognitive functions indicate how you perceive and judge information naturally without thinking. If you choose to do it another way, that's not a natural cognitive preference, therefore it's not your natural cognitive function. As a helpful general rule, extroverted functions are tethered in the external world and are therefore more objective and less personal to the subject, whereas introverted functions take place in the subject's inner world and are therefore more personal, subjective, and the stakes are higher for the subject. So jumping into the perceiving functions, these functions indicate how we take in data before we judge or evaluate it. So types who use an extroverted function as their preference for perceiving data, taking in data, naturally will use an introverted function for judging that data that they have taken in. So these are all of our P types. So first we have extroverted sensing, or SE. Now this function prefers to perceive reality based on what can objectively be experienced through the 5 senses. So they take in what they can see and experience with their 5 senses, but again, because it's an extroverted function, so tethered in the external world, it's not personal in any way. They're exploring the sense data based on what they can see and experience, they're playing with it, and then they're disregarding it. They're not storing it away anywhere, unless their introverted judging function deems that this experience is important or valuable in some way. Now, extroverted intuition, or NE, does the same in a similar fashion, but with abstract ideas, concepts, possibilities, and patterns. Because remember that where sensing functions prefer to take in sense data first, intuiting functions are naturally able to see beyond the sense data to abstract patterns and implications. They naturally pay attention to and take in all of the connections between things and the patterns in an abstract way, but not in a personal way. So they play with ideas and patterns as they come. And this can be by extrapolating 1001 different connections and possibilities just from one sense data point, and then disregarding them. So they're not storing them away anywhere personal, again, unless their introverted judging function deems that this pattern or connection or what idea, whatever it is important or significant to them in some way. There is a fly flying around my room somewhere, and I'm sure that it keeps making it into the shot, so we're all just going to have to deal with that. In regards to our introverted perceiving functions, types who prefer to use an introverted function as a means of perceiving data will naturally be using an extroverted function as a means of judging and evaluating the data that they've taken in. So these are all of our J types. So beginning with introverted sensing, or SI, again, this is an introverted function, so it's personal to the subject, whereas SE, or extroverted sensing, is more objective. So it takes in sense data from observable, tangible reality, but prefers to slot it away and store it in a personal database and sort it in a way that tells them how reality should be experienced. It cannot help but pay attention to details within sense data that are similar to things that they've previously experienced, and is more interested in ordering sense data than just experiencing it for its own sake, as SE does. So as you can see, you cannot use both SI and SE naturally at the same time. They kind of contradict each other. SE explores sense data as it comes for its own sake, without any personal attachment to it, and then disregards it, whereas SI needs to categorize the sense data into familiar frameworks. Introverted intuition, or NI, pays particular attention to abstract links, implications, and possibilities, this time in a personal way that's about the subject. So whereas NE takes in observable, objective, obvious patterns and possibilities in the abstract, NI creates its own subjective patterns about what is symbolic or meaningful to them. So for them, it's not just about exploring infinite possibilities in the moment and for the sake of it, as NE does, but creating internal patterns within the self about what is going to happen in the future, what is important to them, by fitting all of these different puzzle pieces together until it creates a whole picture. So again, you cannot naturally use both NE and NI at the same time, as your first cognitive preference. NE explores patterns and implications and possibilities broadly and in an impersonal way, whereas NI is personal and selective in the patterns it creates. They are curated and perfectly molded by the subject. I'm doing this a lot in this video. NE just sees the patterns. They're there to play with for anyone who wants to play with them, unless the user chooses to do a deeper dive, which we can all do. But again, chosen behaviors are not natural cognitive functions. Moving on to the judging functions. Now, these functions indicate how you prefer to evaluate and judge the data that you've perceived using your perceiving function. And we'll begin with the extroverted functions, which again are less personal and more objective. And these are used as a dominant preference for all of our J types. Extroverted thinking, or TE, judges external reality and the data that it's perceived based on functionality of the data that it's gathered and how it is useful for the external environment. This function pays attention to empirically proven facts or standards of what works for the environment external to themselves. Because remember, it's an extroverted function, so it's not personal. It judges based on pragmatic systems of logic that have real world application. And so that's why people who use this function in a dominant slot are very do, go, because they don't have any real personal attachment to the systems that they're putting in place. So they're not as high stakes. They're able to execute quickly, efficiently, and competently, because to them, it's just about getting it done and making the data that they've gathered useful and applicable to the environment. Extroverted feeling, or FE, also seeks to make changes in their external environment, but they pay particular attention to people and interpersonal dynamics. So these people are judging and applying data based on the emotional state of the people around them, what's helpful for the tribe, and the general consensus of the group. People who use this function are naturally going to want to take into consideration what the shared value of the group is when working out what is personally important to them. So they go outward before they go inward when it comes to how they feel about things, in the same way that extroverted thinking goes outward before it goes inward in terms of what works. As for the introverted judging functions, these functions turn inward towards the subject before they reference the external tribe or environment. And these are used as a dominant preference for all of our P types. Introverted thinking, or TI, judges based on the subject's personally devised set of logically consistent rules and protocols that they have established as absolutely true and therefore reliable. So again, it's not about what makes sense for the external reality, the tribe, or the environment, but what makes sense to them. First and foremost, when judging data, everything needs to be weighed against this personal, fixed framework of what makes sense. Introverted feeling, on the other hand, or FI, judges based on the subject's personal set of values, what feels right to them. They are interested in going inside first to judge data that they have gathered, and they do this based on a subjective set of self-defined values. And they need to judge the data this way in order to feel authentic to who they are. So they don't go to the consensus of the tribe first to work out how they feel or to judge something. They go inward to judge how they feel in an emotional experience that is completely detached from the tribe. Naturally. And again, we are all capable of making decisions about what is best for the people around us, but it's about where we naturally go first. So you can see that you cannot use both FE and FI first as your natural preferences together. You are either going outside first to the tribe's values or inside first to the subject's values. And in regards to TE or TI, you are either going outside first to the external environment for rules that make sense, or inside first for the subject's set of personalized rules. So those are my definitions. I'm sure you can see now why, given what I've said, that fly, why simply calling someone an extrovert or an introvert within the MBTI system skips over a lot of the nuance, as there are 4 different extroverted functions that present completely differently and get their energy from completely different sources. And it's the same with the introverted functions. So if you're going to use the MBTI system, please keep the cognitive functions in mind. Stopping at just the 8 letters can make the system far too ambiguous to be useful, and in fact it can be quite the opposite. These functions don't have to limit you, they are simply a tool for understanding your own natural cognitive preferences as well as those of others. Within your personality, you have access to all 4 sensing, intuiting, thinking, and feeling tools. They are not dichotomies, don't forget that. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. If you're interested, I have uploaded a podcast episode where I go into more detail about the functions and all of the things we've discussed today. So please jump down to the links in my description if you'd like access to that episode. I've also included some other links in the description of this video if you'd like to do a deeper dive into MBTI and the cognitive functions. So happy diving, and I will chat to you later. Bye.